Dan Henderson is a certified legend of MMA. The man has trained with an absolute murderer's row of fighters. From Fedor Emelianenko to the Nogueira brothers, his gym was a forge for champions. But there's one fighter that even he couldn't handle: Strickland. The fact that Henderson, of all people, banned Strickland from his gym shines a light on a huge problem for the controversial UFC star. So what could Strickland have possibly done to get kicked out? And what does it tell us about why he's becoming too toxic for even the toughest fighters in the world? To really get the Strickland problem, you have to start with Dan Henderson. Hendo isn't just a fighter, he's an icon. A two-division pride champ, a Strikeforce champ. When he talks, people listen. So when Henderson went on Joe Rogan's podcast and laid out what happened with Strickland, it definitely made waves. Hendo explained that Strickland trained at his gym for about 3 years, and for a while, he was exactly what a high-level gym needs. He was a great training partner because he pushed everyone to their limit. Henderson told Rogan, "He was a great training partner. You need at least one guy in your gym that does that and goes hard and makes everybody else go hard when they're going against him." So I liked it. But that intensity had a dark side. The benefit of having that pressure cooker in the gym was eventually completely overshadowed by how corrosive he was to the team itself. According to Henderson, the problem wasn't just hard sparring, it was a total lack of respect. He put it bluntly, he just kind of gets too involved talking sh about people. He just was too disrespectful to teammates and stuff. It got to a point where warnings just weren't cutting it anymore. The trash talk started leaving the gym mats and showing up online. It was poisoning the team's culture. Eventually, Henderson had to make a call. As he said, we kind of had to let him go. Now, Strickland tells a different story. He claims he was the one who left after Henderson retired and the team fell off, though he did admit he would make fun of the fight team constantly. It doesn't really matter who pulled the trigger. The fact is, one of the most respected guys in the history of the sport decided Strickland was impossible to have around. It was a massive red flag, and this wasn't a one-time thing. The story of Strickland and gym drama is a long one. The beef with Dan Henderson wasn't the start of it. It was just another chapter in a long book of burned bridges. His reputation for turning a friendly sparring session into a real fight is well known, mostly because Strickland brags about it himself. One of the most infamous examples was his blow-up with the late BJJ world champion, Orlando Sanchez. During what was supposed to be a grappling session, Strickland felt Sanchez held onto a dangerous submission for too long. Strickland didn't just stop the roll, he exploded. He slapped Sanchez, threw a front kick, and went on a screaming tirade calling it a DCK move. The clip went viral. Sanchez insisted he was just grappling, but Strickland stood by what he did, later saying, "I'm a cage fighter. This is what I F-king do, I like to hurt people." For a lot of people watching, it was a clear sign that Strickland has no off switch when he feels disrespected. Then there was the sparring footage with PFL champ Emiliano Sordi. Sordi is a light heavyweight, a much bigger guy. But the video shows Strickland just marching forward, eating heavy shots and screaming, "Let's F-king go," while taunting him. Sordi later said Strickland was truly crazy but authentic, but he also dropped this dose of reality. The problem with him is that many people don't want to do sparring with him because he hurts them. This isn't just about going too hard in training. For Strickland, it's a philosophy. He openly says that sparring is his therapy. "I've got some demons that I work out in the gym," he once said. "I don't drink, my therapy is sparring, I spar, I feel better, I'm happier. I'm a nicer person, it just F-ing helps me function." He's even talked about knocking out sparring partners right before their fights, and this is the core of the conflict. While Strickland uses the gym to fight his personal demons, his training partners are there to get ready for a paid fight, not to be a punching bag in someone else's psychological drama. When your therapy is hurting your teammates, you become a liability. You become toxic. To really understand why Strickland is the way he is, you have to look past the octagon and into a childhood he calls horrific. That confrontational, unhinged personality isn't an act for the cameras. It was forged in a home filled with abuse and terror. Strickland has been brutally honest about his father, calling him a monster and a boogeyman who was physically and mentally abusive. In some gut-wrenching interviews, he's described sleeping on the floor, terrified his father was going to kill his mother. "I'm this little kid who loves his mom, who thinks his mom is going to die," he recalled. And this happened more than once. He remembers his father getting on top of his mother, strangling her, and saying, "I'm going to F-king kill you tonight." The trauma was so constant that he couldn't even stay awake in school because he was up all night on edge. He says he doesn't have a single good memory of his childhood. This environment was also wrapped in a dark ideology. Strickland admitted his father was a neo-Nazi, and that, as a lost kid looking for an identity, he went down that same path for a while. He even got kicked out of school for a hate crime. It wasn't until he found MMA that he found a way out. He explained, "Then I started training, and the moment I started training I was like, I don't hate anybody. Everyone's cool. Then a lot of people who helped me out in my life, they weren't white." This story, it explains so much. It doesn't excuse his behavior, but it provides a disturbing context for it. When Dricus du Plessis brought up his childhood abuse in a press conference, Strickland's reaction was immediate and violent, sparking a brawl in the crowd at UFC 296. For Strickland, that's not trash talk, it's poking at an open wound. He processes everything through conflict. As he puts it, when you go through that level of trauma, you just greet the world differently. His aggression, his unfiltered comments, his desire to hurt people, he sees it as a survival skill he learned in the worst way imaginable. But understanding where the toxicity comes from doesn't make it any less damaging to the people around him. The consequences of Strickland's behavior are now hitting his career from all sides. Sure, his wild personality has made him a huge star with a lot of fans, but it's also created a very unstable foundation. That instability was on full display after his title loss to Dricus du Plessis at UFC 297. His own head coach, Eric Nixick of Extreme Couture, absolutely torched his performance in public. Nixick called it uninspired and very underwhelming, saying Strickland looked like he was sleepwalking. But the criticism went deeper than just one bad night. Nixick openly questioned if Strickland even wanted to be there, saying, "He needs to evaluate what he wants to do in this sport. If it's just to make money, then that's great. Let us know. I want to coach world champions, so my motivations are different." This was a shocking public breakup. Strickland fired back, saying Nixick would probably not be in his corner for his next fight, starting a public feud with the very coach who led him to a world title. Nixick later said he regretted airing it all out publicly, but the damage was done. It proved the central point. Strickland's volatility makes it almost impossible to maintain stable, professional relationships, even with the people who should be closest to him. This pattern goes beyond his own team. While UFC CEO Dana White seems to give him a long leash, Strickland's comments have pushed the line so many times that the UFC has had to manage his media appearances to avoid total chaos. He's a walking headline, and the UFC uses that for clicks. But he's also a PR wildfire they're constantly trying to put out. For other fighters, he's a puzzle. Some, like his former rival Alex Pereira, respect his intensity and have had good sparring sessions with him. But many others see him as a gym bully who's just unprofessional. The toxicity is in the chaos. Teammates, coaches, and the UFC itself never know which Sean Strickland is going to show up. The focused, world-class fighter or the traumatized guy who's a disrespectful liability. And that constant uncertainty is why, for so many elite camps, the reward of training with Sean Strickland just isn't worth the risk. So is Sean Strickland really too toxic for the UFC's toughest fighters? It's complicated. On one side, his raw intensity comes from a place of real trauma, and in a sport full of fake personas, a lot of fans connect with that authenticity. His unfiltered nature is his brand, and it's made him a star. But that same rawness is a destructive force. A legend like Dan Henderson kicking him out of Team Quest wasn't a fluke. It was a sign of what was to come in a career built on conflict. From turning sparring into his own personal therapy to his public meltdowns with teammates and even his own head coach, he's shown a pattern of behavior that just doesn't work with the respect and structure a top MMA gym needs. Strickland's toxicity isn't about him being a bad guy. It's about him being a chaotic element. He brings a level of psychological baggage that most professional athletes, whose entire careers are built on stable and focused training, just can't afford to be around. He might be a hell of a fighter and a fascinating character, but for a team trying to build champions, he's a fire that's just too hard to control. So what do you guys think? Is Sean Strickland's personality just part of what makes him a great fighter, or is it the main thing holding him back? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And if you liked this breakdown, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the world of MMA.